Ladies and gentlemen, John Mellencamp.
Listen to the latest album of John Cougar Mellon something.
Mellencamp, yeah, he's great.
Yeah, you're telling me.
Pretty girl sound.
Yeah, thank you.
Be careful.
Eric, who's John Denver?
Yes.
Pop music for 300, please.
He didn't do too badly in 1982 with Hurt So Good. Diego.
Who's John Cougar?
John Cougar Mellencamp, yes.
Pop music for 200, please.
Her 1989 album.
Thanks for staying up later. We spent Christmas night with John Mellencamp, taped another. Here it is, the day after, and we'll just pick up at random on a few topics we didn't have time for. For a while, people compared you to Springsteen.
Right.
And at the beginning, it wasn't favorable.
Right.
Now it's kind of come around, and I think most people see you as distinct. Some similarities, but they don't view you as a Springsteen knockoff anymore. How much did it bother you when they did?
Well, I don't know, you know, I really kind of just ignored it because I couldn't really take part of it. But, you know, I got to say it did bother me. I mean, everybody wants to think that they're an individual and has their own identity. But I think that, you know, looking back on it now, it was just, it all boils back down to Johnny Cougar because that was the press that the record company sent out. This is the new whatever, you know, and, you know, I know Bruce. I think he's a great guy, and, you know, we're both American songwriters, and I think that's pretty much where the similarity stops and starts. His songwriting is much more cinematic than mine, you know, much more cinematic.
Do you want to develop that a little bit more? I know he tends to be, you say he's more cinematic, maybe he's more melodramatic than you are, but you go ahead. You understand it better than I do.
Well, you know, and I that's really the long and short of it. If you know, I had to make a comparison, he's, you know, I write much more close to the knuckle than he does. And I might say things more crudely than he would, but strictly intentional on my part. And songwriting is a funny thing. When you're a young songwriter, a lot of songs are accidents. But after you've written so many songs, you know, I'm like a pitcher with control over what I want to do. You know, I can pretty much write and call up the kind of song that I want to try to write. And don't get me wrong, I still have wonderful surprises. And sometimes after I write a song, I look up and laugh. You know, it's like, thanks. You know, because you really, you know, it is true, you are kind of a lightning rod for ideas. But it's like anything else. I've done it a long time. And you've got to be able to put time into it and realize when, I just went out in left field here. You know, the song's going the wrong way. So at that point, I stopped writing. But as a young guy, I would keep writing. I would try to make it come back. So sometimes you'd end up with songs that were unfocused. But anymore for me now, I hope those days are over.
Has there ever been a time when you felt that you strayed and you weren't honest in your work? And you wanted to retrieve it, pull it back, and erase it?
I think you struggle with that all the time. You know, you struggle with that all the time. See, I think it's very important that John Mellencamp stays a walking contradiction. You know, if I'm not constantly challenging myself and looking to find out who I am and trying to rediscover, then, you know, there's no growth there. You can only be right when you've been wrong, right? So, yeah, I mean, and it's funny because, like you talked about Jack and Diane last night on their show. At the moment, I didn't feel that way about the song. But maybe, because it was a #1 record, I didn't like it so good. You know what I'm saying? Because I never really saw myself as that. You know what I'm saying? So maybe I did sell out with that song. Maybe sometimes that's why I don't like that song. But in the moment when I was writing the song, I definitely didn't feel that way. I was a young songwriter. I was trying to tell a story. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
But how it turned out, you know, something completely different.
You get connected with the small town image, which, you know, it definitely is who you are. But but is it disproportionate?
Well, I am not the keeper of the small town. Let me say that once and for all. You know, I wrote a song, Small Town, and I'm glad that so many people connected to it. But I'm not really the keeper of the small town. I'm not a lot of things that people say about me. Like I said earlier, you know, you write what you strive to be, not what you are. And since I live there, I'm not really the voice from the Midwest. People say that about me. But I've written a lot of other songs that really don't indicate that. But if that's what people say about me, that's what people say about me. I have no control over it.
Got nothing against
Newsweek, because I was thinking in the days preceding taping this, I was thinking, how can I sum this up? And I couldn't do it as well as this, so this may take a second, but bear with me here. Newsweek in 1986 wrote a very favorable profile of you, and I guess it was about time because you'd taken some shots from the critics leading up to the time you turned the corner and won their approval. And they said, among other things, by hymning the virtues of the rural Midwest, he has brought to life a moral universe previously unsung in the rock tradition. And in an era when almost every other rock act seems like a state-of-the-art commercial ploy or a cartoon for a new video, Mellencamp pulled off an almost impossible feat. He has taken some of the most elementary facets of old-fashioned rock, its romance, its implicit promise that any kid can make his mark, its youthful air of adventure, and made them seem brand new.
Well, that's nice. I know that. I remember that piece coming out. A guy named, I think, Jay Cox wrote that. And you know, I don't know how to respond to that. You know, that was an awful nice thing for him to say.
Is it what you're aiming at, though? I'm not asking you to claim that you succeeded. That's for somebody else to judge. But is that what you're aiming at? What Jay Cox was talking about?
Well, you know, what I'm aiming at is, and always have and always will, was I want to be considered honest, and I've never kissed ass. And if things like that come out of it, well, then that's great.
Next up from New York, Mr. John Cougar, who may be the only singing star in America. Here we go again. The only singing star in America who lives in Bloomington, Indiana, and who does not care, in his own words, for life in the fast lane. As he once said, I'm not cool enough for L.A. or fast enough for New York City. But I'll tell you one thing, he knows how to sing a song.
I know that James Brown was an idol of yours growing up, like so many composers of your generation. And then you actually run into James Brown, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
On the Tomorrow Show, the old Tom Snyder Tomorrow Show in this time slot.
Mm-hmm.
And Ali was there, too.
Right.
This is like a weird dinner party, right?
It was an interesting bill, you know, because I'm just a new songwriter, new guy, right? And if I had to choose, this was right when Ali was getting sick, but nobody knew what it was. You know, nobody knew what was the matter.
Yeah.
It hadn't been diagnosed as anything. But that particular night, they were there about some Muslim thing, I think, or I don't know exactly what it was. But James was mad. James was definitely mad about something. But Ali wasn't. Ali was just the champ, you know. There's hundreds of people with him. But that night, if somebody had to say to me, you had to fight one of these guys, I would have fought the champ. Because James was a little piece of dynamite standing there, you know, and didn't disappoint you at all. He was James Brown.
It's never hopeless. When I got 8 to 16 years for breaking and entering as a kid, because I was hungry, and here I am today, it's not hopeless. Don't say hopeless. Then we're carving out. I don't believe in hopeless. Don't you think it's hope? If you believe in something, it's right. Don't say hopeless. I don't believe in hopeless.
You know, I said hello to him. That was it. That's all you wanted to say to him that night.
And he said nothing back except...
He just grunted. You know, he grunted at us. It didn't matter, though, because, you know, James Brown is great. Yeah.
Do you do some James Brown moves, or is that me imagining it in some of these videos?
No, I mean, you know, when I was a kid, I was in a band called the Crepe Soul, and that's what we did. We did every song James Brown ever came up with. We even did Night Train. I mean, I am the lead vocalist, and we're doing Night Train. Now I get on Night Train. that was my line, you know, for like 5 minutes, you know. Yeah, we did everything. We were a James Brown jukebox.
There's so many videos we could talk about. Lonely All Night is one. Wrestling around with the girl in a laundromat, shot in black and white. But one I wanted to talk about specifically is Cherry Bomb,
right?
Where it's not about black and white, but you've got a black guy dancing in 50s attire with the white girl.
Right.
And that caused, at least in some parts of the country, more furor than you would have thought, considering this wasn't 1958.
Not a lot, but I got some pretty angry people. You know, the Klan wrote me a letter, which kind of surprised me. I guess they hadn't seen To Serve With Love yet, huh? You think that was it? I didn't get it. And, you know, it's on television, you know, all the time. They pretty much say, hey, look, Mellencamp, we like your records, but if you don't quit this type of stuff in your videos, you will see us in Atlanta.
You say, you know, sports was sports, and grooving was grooving, and dancing meant everything. We were young and improving.
Right.
That captures an attitude, an idea.
Well, it captures our generation, I think, very, very well, because I'll tell you, there has never been, at least in, you know, as far as I know, in American history, a more optimistic generation than we were. And I mean, that may sound funny when you look back on the protest, but I mean, we thought that we could change everything. You know, imagine that.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of kids thinking we could change something. And you know, kind of did. Kind of did in a funny way. I mean, I can wear blue jeans now. That's not the point. I mean, I really feel like that, you know, those kids stopped the Vietnam War. I really believe that. I mean, I was there. I was stoned, but I was there. But I mean, that was kind of the attitude. We were so young and brash and full of belief. And, you know, things were very real to a 22-year-old guy or a 19-year-old guy. I don't see kids doing that now. It's all about entertainment and money and how we can prop up this corporation. And it scares me. It's creepy. I think it's too creepy to even think about.
If right now, for some reason, you stopped writing songs, and somebody said, pick out 5 or 6 that would give people a good idea of who this guy was at his best, what 5 or 6 would you pick out?
Well, I think absolutely the best song I've ever written in my life is a song called Jackie Brown. Paper and Fire, I think, is a good song. Big Daddy is a good song. That's 3 that come off the top of my head real quick. Those songs are very honest. See, I'm a very humble guy. I want to be a humble guy. I come from humble beginnings, and I want to go out humbly. I think those songs are very humble songs. You know, John Mellencamp's career, if you want to talk about career, has not been a big story. You know what I'm saying? It's not been a big story. But it's been a whole bunch of little stories. And to me, that's much more important than a big story. Big stories. So that's why, you know, coming from my poor beginnings in the music business, growing up in public, it's always been a little story about me. And I think that that's great. And I, you know, if some young songwriter was to come up to me and ask my advice, I can only say, play it like you feel it. You know, because that's all there is.
You mentioned Paper and Fire.
Right.
One of my favorite videos of yours, you're in Savannah, Georgia.
Right.
And you're sitting and strumming the tune, and you're just surrounded by people. I don't think there's any hired extras. Those are people that live there, right?
Oh, yeah, the people just, I mean, we set the camera up, and those people came out of those homes. Very sad situation. A lot of those people, it was 10 o'clock in the morning, and a lot of them were already drunk. You know, drunk for the day. There's a woman dancing, and she was pretty tipsy. And it was very sad for me. I mean, the video came out great. And some people go, were you exploiting those people? No, man, I'm not exploiting these people. I'm trying to show you how these people live. $40 a month rent on a dirt road in downtown Savannah, Georgia. Which, you know, Savannah, Georgia is a beautiful town. You know, the South, everything is right there. If you're interested in history, Savannah, Georgia is the place to go. It's just full of it. But at the same time, you know, it's kind of a laugh and a tear type place. You know, it was a very sad day.
Was the jukebox imported?
That was the only setup we had, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the only setup in the whole place, yeah.
And the old black guy is looking out the screen door, and he walks out, and you see there's a jukebox and a framed picture of Jesus.
That whole image, to me, at that particular time, was so American. You know what I'm saying? And so real. I mean, I don't know exactly what I was thinking, but, you know, there was a lot of that preacher stuff, these TV evangelist stuff going on, and that rock and roll, and was the devil's music, and I always thought that was funny, you know, and I thought, why does the devil get all the good music then? You know, why didn't God get some of it, you know?
In Jack and Diane, there's a line about the Bible Belt, right?
Right.
And you know how sometimes you hear fragments of songs and you don't hear them right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we were lucky enough to have Paul McCartney on, and he was telling me that Dylan told him that the line in I Want to Hold Your Hand, I can't hide, I can't hide, I can't hide. Dylan thought it was, I get high, I get high, I get high. So the first time I heard
it, this is news to me.
The first time, well, this is weirder. This comes from wherever I'm at. The first time I heard this line about the Bible Belt, I thought it was "Come and Save Me, Bobby Rydell."
Well, I don't know, you know.
But you know, but I said to myself, that can't be. There's no way it could be.
Right. Well, I even got a funny one, man. I was driving with my girlfriend a few months ago in South Carolina, and this Van Halen song came on, a song called Panama. And she's singing along, and she goes, "Cannonball." Huh? Cannonball. She thought they were saying cannonball, but I think those type of mistakes are they're almost funny. I think they're good.
Yeah, I remember a song called "Kind of a Drag" by the Buckinghams when we were kids. I'm sitting in junior high, and there's a kid next to me, and he's drumming with pencils on his desk, and he's going, "Canada Dry, when your baby don't love you."
See, already they were trying to, like, put it into commercialization and try to sell it out. He's probably a president of a corporation now.
Provided you're not distracted by the other things which might catch your eye in that video. You see John surrounded by his work. And here's another bit of it. This is called Temptation, Persuasion, and Cash, the Deal Makers.
Yeah, this hangs in my attorney's office, and you see the guy who's got like 6 fingers and a handgun, and you know, I had a lot of fun painting this painting because this is Alan Gruber's painting, and he is like, that's what he does. He's your attorney? He's my attorney. And he asked me to paint a painting for his office, and I said, well, what do you want it to be? And he said, I don't know, whatever you wanted. So I just like had fun with him, and he's got a good sense of humor, and he laughed about it too.
Who do you turn to, if anybody, for thoughts about your work?
Well,
as a painter?
I don't really need that. You know what I'm saying? It's funny. It's different than being a young songwriter, because the work is really just for me. You know what I'm saying? And I enjoy the process, and you know. But who I turn to is Max Beckmann. He's like the greatest expressionist painter, German expressionist painter. Which is, if I'm akin to anybody, it would be German painters, because these guys are wonderful painters of the human state.
As we close this thing out, this sort of comes from left field. Can you pick 1 or 2 things that's a response to your work as a performer and songwriter, maybe from somebody you didn't know, that moved you the most or maybe surprised you the most?
It always amazes me that people say things to you all the time. You saved my life. And I think, well, that's a pretty damn grand statement for a song. But I recently talked to a guy who said that to me, and damned if he didn't mean it. He really believed it. This guy's a rock writer. And he said, he quoted my lyrics at me and said, I was at this point in my life, and I think to me, it's easy to look and say, oh, nobody's listening. You know, nobody cares. You know, there's nobody bigger at the great American pastime that's feeling sorry for themselves than John Mellencamp, I can tell you that. Pretty self-indulgent, you know, self-pitying type guy at times. But when you hear a guy that you respect, he's a writer and an intellectual guy, and you realize then that, you know, it reconfirms your faith in music, of meaning something, because they're serious when they say that.
People say there's no rock and roll on the radio, at least no new rock and roll on the radio these days. There are a few people that give the lie to that. John Mellencamp is one of them. We hope we've painted at least something of a picture of his life the last couple of nights. I know you don't do this often, and we were really happy that you came by.
But I'm going to tell you one thing. When you're editing this piece, if I'm telling the truth, I'll give you a wink. Other than that, man, I could be lying.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and the John Mellencamp tour starts in Savannah the first week of January. See you later.